Hello everyone and welcome to a new YouTube video. I thought it was time for a Q&A. Lots of you asked me questions, like just generally, and also because I asked you to ask me questions. Let's just get going. I've got a whole list. Veronica asks, what's the cream you use on your hands before you start painting? It's this. It's Art Guard by Winsor & Newton. It's a barrier cream and I don't know, I just find that I put it on my hands and it makes washing my hands much easier afterwards, and you don't really notice that you've got it on. So I really like it and I really recommend it, and it just, yeah, it makes life easier. Susan asks, I'm curious how you describe or feel about your work/life/mum balance or imbalance. That's such a good question. I feel pulled in a lot of different directions all the time, and it's very difficult to balance being a mum, having a day job as well, and having kids, and then also doing this art thing. And then both doing this art thing from the point of view of like creatively painting and the teaching that I do and the content that I create for YouTube and Patreon. So I do a lot of things and it's difficult. I feel like I have a fairly good balance in that it feels okay, but at the same time it's also about being okay with what I've got, because if I start thinking about what I would really like, then that's something I'm still working towards. It's not necessarily something that I've got. Something that happens in my life a lot at the moment is that I am pulled in a lot of different directions and that I get interrupted. And I think that as an artist, that is especially difficult because the creative process is such an intense thing that if you always don't have enough time, or you always expect to be interrupted, or you do get interrupted, it can really hamper your progress, especially because artistic things are not necessarily linear things. They are not something with a beginning and an end point. They're not something that you can necessarily plan. You just need a sense of timelessness in order to achieve certain creative things. When it comes to other things, I feel like, you know, being pulled in different directions makes me more effective. It makes me more productive. I'm a list person. I plan things. I'm fairly meticulous, and I am very kind of effective and productive with the time that I do have. The thing that suffers most is creativity in and of itself, not tasks that I can plan, like recording a video or creating a lesson or sending out mail post packages and stuff. Those things I can plan, but the creative part, that's the thing that suffers. So sorry, that was a really long answer to a simple question. Jackie asks, I've often wondered about bilingual people whose second language is English. Do you find it easier to think about your worries and stress in English, or is Dutch a deeper and richer source of insight? Also, are you ever tempted to use Dutch for your written comments rather than English? Clearly, you were writing deeply emotional things on your large painting, which is that one which was in a vlog recently. Would you feel safer if you wrote in Dutch and thus limit the audience that can understand the depth of your feeling? That is such a juicy question. Okay, first of all, when I was a teenager, I almost completely swore off anything Dutch and speaking Dutch and reading Dutch. So I really was like, okay, that can all just be over there. I'll just be English from now on. English is the language in which I learned to talk and think about my feelings. And Dutch is, for me, a very emotionally stunted language. Not because the language itself is, but because that's what the connotation is. And I was never able to use it. I never grew the way I have grown as I have as an emotional being when speaking English. And, you know, I have therapy in English, I have my relationship with Andrew, with my kids, it's all in English, with my friends. So I don't have the emotional vocabulary in Dutch that I have in English. So for me, it's very natural to use English for everything. And also, I dream in English. Also, sometimes I dream in German or in French, and very occasionally in Dutch, but not very often. Is Dutch a deeper and richer source of insight? No, definitely not. Dutch is like very basic level for me, even though obviously back when I lived in Holland, my Dutch was very good. It just was technically good rather than emotionally rich, if that makes sense. Do I ever feel tempted to use Dutch for written comments rather than English? Like on my art? No, hardly ever, because it just doesn't come up in me. Very occasionally something will come up, but like that's like maybe like 1% of the time. Usually it's English. I do, however, if somebody writes to me in Dutch in the comment section, I will respond in Dutch, because obviously that's how it works. Yes, and would I feel safer if I wrote in Dutch and limit the audience that can understand the depth of my feeling? I don't feel particularly exposed about writing and people seeing my writing. I feel enormously exposed when it comes to sharing my art and sharing such deep things, but it isn't as if the words are more exposing than the painting in and of itself. Sometimes I actually find the paintings more exposing than the words that I add to them. So I don't really have a problem with people reading the words that I write on my art. And also because to me, actually, the most exposing thing about my art is often exposing it to myself. Like the person who feels most exposed that it's exposing to is me, if that makes sense. And then once I've exposed it to myself, it's like it can exist out there and other people can see it. That doesn't necessarily make it more exposing. I hope that makes sense. Chella says, when it is heavy, does it feel better, like a weight lifted, when you put it out there in a creative way? Like it's hard while you're doing it, but once it's done, there is relief. Unfortunately, no. That is not how creativity works for me. I know that's how it works for a lot of people. Like you bring heavy things to the canvas or to the page and then you work through it and then it's like a weight lifted or you're relieved or that kind of thing. It doesn't work like that for me, unfortunately. I don't really know why. For me, either the process feels I'm really into it and it feels like it's in flow, or it feels easy, or it just feels really difficult. And I think it is to do with how I am coming to the art, and how I am in myself. And sometimes stuff is just a struggle, and I think it's partly maybe like being slightly closed off or something. And then sometimes I'm just so open and everything flows out. Yeah, no, it's very, very rare that I would come to my art in a mood and then like it would lift as I do it. That's just, no. I wish it was. That would be so nice. Sherry says several things. Okay, have you thought about converting part of your office space into an art space? No, but that's also for practical reasons, that the office space is really my and my husband's company space, and it isn't really for my art. That's a completely separate thing. There isn't really space for that to do that there. I do have my silhouette in the office, but once I have more space for my art, my silhouette's actually coming to live with me instead of the office. How did I end up in London? I moved to London when I was 18. I went to university here. I thought London was such a romantic place. Like I had always kind of envisaged living here and walking along the Thames and, you know, like this amazing life. And it is an amazing life living in London. There is not a day that goes by that I don't just love living here. But I do think that that has a lot to do with living in central London. When I moved here when I was 18, I lived all the way out east in, was it East 16? It was, yeah, very far away from central London and not the romantic ideal. But yeah, no, living in central London, I love it. Every time I go over one of the bridges over the Thames, I'm like, I feel like such a tourist. I love sitting at the front of the bus, and I just love everything about living here. Was it difficult to get up the nerve to apply as a lifebook teacher? Yes, it was difficult, but also Tamara Laporte was my friend before any of the art stuff. So I actually asked her, like, can I be a teacher on Lifebook? And she said no for like many, many years. And it's like, she was right to say no, because I wasn't ready and it wouldn't have fit. But at a certain point, she said yes. So that's how it went. Where did your cat's name originate? My cat's name is Tika. She is a Bengal, and because of that we decided to call her Tika after the curry, tikka masala. Diana asks, could you make a video with tips, techniques and strategies for creating studio vlogs and art-related vlogs? I have made a video called How to Vlog, a Beginner's Guide. I will leave a link in the description below. I hope you find it useful. My friend Hap asks, you have obviously seen how your style/art has changed over time to arrive here, but do you ever think about how it will change in the future? Do you think it will very much? Either way, how do you feel about that? That's such an interesting question. So the changes in my art have always been very gradual. It isn't like all of a sudden I started doing a completely new thing. It's always kind of like, yeah, it's been very gradual. And I love seeing how it's changed over the years. I love going back and looking at old art and seeing how it was completely different, but how the seeds of what I do now were already present in there. And that's like, those are things that you can only see in hindsight. You can't see them looking forward. You can't plan that. Do I think my art's going to change very much in the future? I think it's going to evolve. I feel like recently I'm painting something slightly different from what I have done before. I feel like there's a forward momentum. There's something that I feel like I'm getting closer to grasping. I don't necessarily know if that is evidenced very much in how my art looks different from one year to the next. I think it's more in, I don't know, what it expresses and how I feel about it and what the process feels like. And also I just feel excited. I feel excited about the change in my art. Sometimes I feel like I get down on myself and I feel like, oh, I should just be consistent. Like, this comes from like looking at people on Instagram and seeing people with very consistent styles and they just do the same but slightly different, and they have really nicely curated Instagram grids, and I'm like, oh, I want that. But then really what I want is to express myself, and how I express myself can be different from day to day, and each painting I do is different. And obviously I have a style, I have a preferred way of working, and like there's a cohesion across the things that I do, but I don't do the same thing exactly all the time, because yeah, that just wouldn't make sense to me. So I'm just interested to see what's gonna happen, and also like interested in the things that I don't know yet. So yeah, curious. All right, let's see, where are we at? Okay, Dawn asks, do you have Aquarelle II pastel crayons? If so, how do you enjoy using them? I'm thinking she means the Neocolor II, the Caran d'Ache ones. I do have those. They are in a box that belongs to my kids now, with my kids' art supplies, because I do not like them. The crayons, not the kids. I really like the kids, actually. I'll keep them. But the crayons, I could leave. So yeah, I've often wanted to like the water-soluble Neocolor, but I don't. And I still feel mildly guilty about it, as if I'm betraying the art community somehow by not liking them. I have recently thought like I might want to bring them back in and see if I like them now, if there's a way in which I can incorporate them into my practice, but I haven't yet. What I do love is I love the Stabilo Woodies. That's these. I've got a fair amount now. I really like them. I feel like they're slightly more creamy, and yeah, I like doing that. I like doing those? No, I like using those. Lovisa asked a lot of questions, but I was actually tempted to just pretend that there was like a different person, like I was kind of like assign different names to her so that it would be like as if like 10 different people asked me questions, but it was all Lovisa. Okay, she asks, what music do you enjoy listening to? I enjoy listening to classical music, which I don't do very much recently. I don't know, it's because we no longer have Spotify Premium, so I haven't been listening to as much music recently. But classical music, love classical music. I also like soundtrack music, like classical soundtracks, so scores, things like that. And actually the music that I end up listening to the most are the practice tracks for my choir. So they're just like the piano accompaniment and then like a clarinet type sound or like oboe sound that plays the notes that I'm supposed to be singing. So I listen to those on repeat because I need to, otherwise I wouldn't know what I would be singing. Okay, she asks, your favorite and least favorite brand of sketchbook? Oh, interesting. Ooh, that's difficult. My favorite. Okay, well, my favorite was the Roberson sketchbook, which is no longer being made. I also really like Sea White of Brighton because I feel like they are so affordable and the quality is, you know, it's just right for that amount of affordability. It's not the most amazing, but it's so affordable and that makes it amazing. Whereas other things, yeah, I don't think I've ever felt as close to a sketchbook as I have to those two brands. I think it also depends on like what work you're creating in a sketchbook, whether it becomes your favorite. But obviously if the surface or the way the sketchbook is putting you off, then it could never become a favorite, if you get what I mean. Okay, and also I really like my Moleskine crinkly sketchbook, which is the, it's not even a sketchbook, it's just the notebook with the really thin paper. I love it. I love it so much. It's really good. And because it's so non-precious, just throw everything at it and it feels really, really nice to work in that. So I really like those. What's my least favorite? I don't know, to be honest. I don't think I have a least favorite. At least not one that is a specific brand that I could tell you. Yeah, no, I don't have a least favorite. There isn't anything where I would say like, oh, don't buy that because it's terrible. That I don't think so. Like, it's horses for courses. Like, yeah. Anyway, okay. My favorite and least favorite art material. Okay, least favorite, Neocolor II crayons, I think. Or also like, you know, like spray inks that keep reactivating. Oh my god, they're terrible. I hate those. My favorite art material. Oh, that's too difficult. My favorite, come on, that's too difficult. White acrylics, that's such a cop-out, but white acrylics, I couldn't live without my white acrylics. And what do I really enjoy using at the moment? Oh, well, I recently discovered Neo pastel crayons. So they're the Caran d'Ache oil pastels, really. They're very nice. But I wouldn't say they're my favorites, but I am really enjoying using those. I also recently discovered the golden So Flat acrylics. I'm enjoying those as well, but again, not favorite. I don't have a favorite. I love them all equally. How is the hamster doing? Oh, my hamster Cookie Bear, he passed away quite a while now ago, maybe like in November last year. Very sudden and unexpected. He wasn't even a year old. So yeah, that was really sad. The kids were like, let's get another hamster. And I'm like, well, no, I actually want to groove this one a little bit first. I do want to get another hamster at some point. It's not quite the right time right now. What two words do you find hardest to pronounce in English, and why is it February and Worcestershire? It's obviously not those two for me. But the one word that I find really shamefully really hard to pronounce in English is the Netherlands. The Netherlands. Yes, so that's my one. Name 5 small things that bring you joy in your everyday life. My kids, they're still pretty small, although the largest one has feet that are the same size as me, which is crazy. Small things. My art desk place here. Cups of tea. It's 3. What else? Cricket. I'm thinking of things, but they're all pretty big things. Like living in London brings me joy. That's not a little thing, that's a big thing. My choir brings me joy. Singing, that's a big thing. But those are like, that brings me to 5. So like, we'll just cheat. It was little and big things. Ooh, crispy minis. Weetabix crispy minis every day. They make me happy. Okay, if you know, you know. And otherwise you'll just think I'm crazy. How did you and Andrew meet? The Gumtree. The Gumtree, which is like a website where you can like sell your used couch and stuff, but they used to do classifieds, and I was browsing the classifieds and I found his kind of advert. Classifieds, is that what it's like, as in like man seeks woman? Anyway, I'm gonna embarrass myself now. Anyway, so I found him on there, and he sounded like a great person, and so I contacted him and we went for a date. Why are you so awesome? Dread Pirate Bree asks, when did you first know you wanted to start teaching art or move towards an art career? Okay, that's a really interesting question, because I think that my motivation initially was envy. I was not very happy with the job that I was doing. This was back when I was doing web design, and then later on me and Andrew started working together, and it was still just a job. Like, I know I'm not supposed to say that, but like, it wasn't my passion. It was just work, and it was practical, and it was good. It was great working together, but it's still not my passion or anything. And just having to fit the creative part of myself into like hobby and like back when I was tired and like in all of the stolen moments, it felt so unfair. Like I wanted to do it more, and I wanted what I saw that other people had. And so but I wasn't ready necessarily, but I started teaching long before I was ready. When I look back, I'm like, oh my God, my art was like terrible back then, but my teaching wasn't. My teaching was already fairly good because I've always loved encouraging people and teaching them and like being quite methodical about what I tell people and that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's definitely improved, like the video making and stuff is improved, everything's improved, but yeah, I wasn't ready as an artist. When I started moving more towards an art career. But yeah, it was envy. That was the motivator, which is it can be a great motivator, but it's not very sustainable. So I'm glad to say I no longer feel propelled by envy. I feel a bit more propelled by my own purposes and what I want to achieve. Yeah, this was a long time ago. How long, same person, how long have you been teaching art? So I don't know, I started making some YouTube videos about 10 years ago, maybe no longer ago then, but I never kept it up. And then I got my first teaching opportunity because my friend Marieke Blokland invited me to teach on Art Journal Summer School, which was an amazing opportunity for me. And it really kind of kick-started things. And when was that? I don't remember. 2015, I want to say, so sometime around then, and then it still took me a few years before I was successful with my application to teach on Lifebook, which to me was like the holy grail of like having made it as a online art teacher. So, Writers Rain Studios asks, hi Iris, personal question. Does trauma influence the words you write on your journal art? I find that a difficult question to answer because when I think about like my life and what I have gone through, I wouldn't classify that as trauma. Like there are things that I can think of that where I would say like, oh yeah, that's trauma, and I don't feel like things that I have experienced classify as trauma. However, I do understand, or I do see that you can have trauma responses to things that are not necessarily trauma. I mean, and maybe it all kind of merges together and overlaps. So I don't think it's a yes or no answer to this, but I would definitely say that it's my feelings that inform the things that I write on my journal pages and on my artwork. And sometimes there are very strong feelings, and sometimes there are experiences. It's not like there are specific experiences that I am writing about, like, oh, this happened and now I'm writing about it, or like I'm expressing about it. It's more about the feelings that everything brings up and the things that I'm learning and the things that I'm talking about in therapy. So it's a bit more organic and a bit more like, ooh, like that, rather than this happened and this is what I'm writing, if that makes sense. Okay, my final question from, I don't know how to pronounce it, Jayo? I think it's Jamie. Do you have a day job and what is it like? I do have a day job. I have a company together with Andrew that we run. And what is it like? I do all the admin and I'm pretty good at it, but it doesn't light my fire. So I do it and I've been doing it for a long time and I am good at it and I, you know, get things done. And it's given me a lot of skills that I am applying in my art job as well. So a lot of kind of admin side, organization, technical things that are kind of transferable skills. Over the last few years with COVID, things have been very quiet in my day job, which have allowed me to do all of this art stuff a lot more and to develop my YouTube channel and my Patreon and do stickers and classes and all that kind of thing. So that's been very exciting. That's it. Thank you so much, everyone who asked questions. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little Q&A video. If you've got any follow-up questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! This video is not about my hair. I'm too short-sighted anyway to see whether it's any good in the viewfinder.